vitamins to cancer prevention. Some health guidelines just aren't true. Some of the things that we believe in can be harmful. So now we're going to be getting the facts about medical myths from the head of breast cancer programs at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York, Dr. Larry Norton. Welcome, Dr. Norton.
Pleasure to be here.
So behind the scenes, if this conversation began because I gave you a list of the vitamins that I was taking, and you said to me, vitamins are not only helpful, but in some cases they can harm and even cause death, I was flabbergasted. We should not be taking vitamins?
Vitamins are really important for you if you take them the way you're supposed to get them in food. But once you take them out of food, you make them chemicals, and you mix them in various kinds of, proportions that are not normal proportions, they are not necessarily good for you. In fact,
a multivitamin?
Every study with vitamin supplementation, or except for one, which I do want to mention, everyone has actually shown that people who take multivitamins actually hurt themselves. They actually have a shorter lifespan.
Why?
Because you're not taking it in its natural form. There are more good things in an apple than any doctor could possibly imagine.
So it's true what they say about the apple.
Apple a day.
Well, I think eating healthy food as close as possible to its natural form, and unadulterated, mostly plants, fruits and vegetables, is clearly the way to get the vitamins you need.
But there isn't any vitamin we should take. I mean, you said to me vitamin D.
Vitamin D.
I'm deficient in that.
Yeah, vitamin D is very important. Actually, you're making a really good point about that, too. We all started in Africa only about 80,000 years ago.
Say that one more time.
Africa. Central Africa.
We're all from Africa.
And a few thousand people, during a drought, a few thousand people walked out of Africa into Yemen, where Yemen is now, and then traveled along the coast to southern India, and then from there spread around the entire world.
I remember.
Do you remember? Oh, I saw you there. That's right.
You know.
And as we moved further north, our skin got lighter. Why? So we could absorb more sunlight and make more vitamin D.
That was the motivation.
Well,
to travel north to get the vitamin D.
Well, we got lighter skin so we can get vitamin D as we move further north.
We should take vitamin D and calcium. I'm talking about women primarily, or just vitamin D.
The point is that we're not outside all the time. We wear clothes, we wear sunblock, we live indoors. The fact of the matter is that we're not getting enough sun exposure, and we don't want excessive sun exposure.
Is that the only vitamin that we should take is vitamin D?
Yes.
People are going to be just amazed.
The evidence is very strong, is that having a normal D level, and I like to see it in the upper half of the normal range, is extremely important. But people with darker skin are going to get more sunlight-induced vitamin D, and therefore people with darker skin need
vitamin D.
Need even more supplementation of vitamin D.
Yeah, because I'm vitamin D deficient.
But the way to tell is by a blood test, sure.
I have to ask this question because Elizabeth comes from a family with a history of cancer, breast cancer.
Okay.
Can you ask him, please?
Well, it's on both sides of my family, which I always thought was important, but I never feel as though it's always talked about the mother side of the family and a mother's breast cancer history. My mom, her sister, my grandmother on her side, maternal, also my father's side grandmother. Does that factor in the father's side at all?
You inherit half your genes from your mother, half from your father. And the genes that are associated with a very high risk of breast cancer, BRCA1, BRCA2, if they're abnormal, you inherit a high risk. You can get them from either side. The only reason in science, while we concentrate, the only reason, and listen to this carefully, folks, the only reason that we concentrate in science on the mother's side is because we are sure who the mother is. And you can't always be sure who the father is. Right? And therefore,
DNA testing.
Yes, actually, when you do genetic testing, it actually is an issue, because the question is, if there's a paternity issue, do you divulge it? Is something that's actually
she always says she's doomed. She's not doomed.
It doesn't work. Actually, there's two important things about that. Number one is that, of course, you're not. Even if you inherit the highest risk, you still are not guaranteed to get breast cancer. But the fact is that we could do things now to lower a person's risk. And so it's important, if you come from a high-risk family with a lot of breast cancer, and to get yourself tested and get the proper counseling. But the other important thing to remember is that studies have shown that people who perceive themselves at highest risk often are involved in the most dangerous lifestyle things, because they try to suppress that in their own minds. They try to deny that risk. For instance, mammography is actually lower in people who perceive themselves at higher risk than people who don't, because of the fear factor.
Speaking of the mammography, the mammograms, a lot of people don't get the mammograms because that radiation that they say you can get. Is that a myth that the radiation can affect you?
while
getting a mammogram?
The number one reason is lack of access. You know, lack of health insurance, lack of access to care is by far the number one reason. But I've heard it a lot from people that they say, I don't want to get a mammogram because I don't expose my breast to radiation because I've heard that radiation causes cancer. The fact is that that the radiation dose is very low, and mammograms save lives. There's nobody that disagrees with this right now. It's extremely important to get the mammograms. It's really a tragedy.
At what age?
It's tragedy. Well, we start at 40, basically.
Unless you're high risk.
Yeah. You should start at 10 years younger than your mother or your sister if they've had breast cancer. But the fact is that it's a lower, the percentage of people who should be getting them is actually, right, for a long time it was 60% of people who should be getting mammograms were getting them. Now it's actually dropped lower than that, and that's really a tragedy, a national tragedy.
But the mammograms miss so many things, so, you know, some people say because of the fatty tissue, should you just skip the mammogram? Or?
For certain individuals, MRIs are a very good test in addition to mammography. The jury is frankly out on sonograms, but MRIs help, but only for certain individuals, and we have guidelines for when people should get MRI and a mammogram. But you should always get a mammogram, too, because they test different things.
Dr. Norton, thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and we learned so much, Dr. Larry Norton. Thank you.
Eat your vegetables.
Eat your vegetables. Give up your vitamins. We'll be right back. So many things we believed in that we now know are not necessarily the case. In the meantime, have a great day, everyone. What, live in the moment? I don't know, but enjoy the view.